Okay, it's time for that short, sweetened, condensed milk version that you guys have been waiting for. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer, everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. So yesterday, you guys know that we had a pretty important court session happen in the Idaho 4 case against Bryan Kohberger. Now, I went ahead and I uploaded the full session that was live streamed on Judge John Judge's YouTube channel because as soon as it was over, well, I said in my previous video that they deleted it, but it looks like they just like privated it. I don't know why they're doing that, honestly, because it's out there everywhere. So I don't know why they don't just keep it on there. If the channel isn't monetized and they're not getting paid for the views and it happened in their courtroom, then I don't know why they didn't just leave it there. I don't really quite get that. But a lot of people thought that this was what was going to happen, that they were going to live stream it, but then they were going to get rid of it. So that's why so many channels decided to live stream and like do commentary and have, you know, the group chat and stuff going on. But as you guys know, I didn't want to do any of that. I don't do lives as it is. And I also didn't want to be distracted. I was really trying to pay attention. So now we're going to go over like the highlights. I kind of did a community post of the stuff that I heard, but it wasn't everything. It definitely was not everything. So now we're going to discuss all of the important factors. And I'm just going to say there's so many contradictions. And then they're agreeing on things that it's just like strange because they agree a lot. We've talked about that on this channel, how the two sides are supposed to be literally like fighting to the death, because that's what this is. This is a death penalty case, okay? They're supposed to be on each other's like bad side, arguing every little thing because the state wants to put Bryan Kohberger on death row, and Ann Taylor is supposed to be trying to exonerate the man, okay? But they literally agree on so many things, it makes me uncomfortable. And it's just like I've said 1,000 times, Ann Taylor's paycheck gets cut from the same people that cuts Bill's paycheck, okay? That cuts Judge's paycheck. It's all the same. So just because they're saying that this is their position in the case doesn't really mean that's what's happening. And just the fact that they're agreeing so much on stuff, just I don't like it. Now, right off the bat, Logsdon comes up and he starts arguing that they want to take the whole issue that they have with the grand jury indictment to the Supreme Court. Now, what is kind of blowing my mind here is that they're literally asking the court, whose decision on the whole matter they don't agree with, for permission to go to that court's boss, okay, and tell that court's boss that they are unhappy with the court. And now they want the court's boss to look into the issue. I don't understand. This is the part that's blowing my mind. How do you have to have permission from the person who you're disagreeing with to go above said person's head? That's like blowing my little non-lawyer novice brain, because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Jay Logsdon basically asking Judge for permission to go over his own head. And that just seems awkward. If you're having issues with your manager, do you get your manager's permission to go and complain about her to her boss? Because you don't do that. So this automatically, I was like, you have to ask permission from the person that you have problems with to go and tell that person's boss that you have problems with them. That is not how that's supposed to work. Now, we know that their big issue is that they're trying to claim that the grand jury was told that this was like a different situation than what it actually is. Now, when it comes to the grand jury, they're supposed to just take what they're given and see if there's probable cause for this person to be the one guilty of the crime. Basically the same as like a PCA. Probable cause affidavit. It is to validate that the information that they have actually points to the person that they want to put handcuffs on. And then the grand jury is to just like validate that those handcuffs were put on the right person. That's how I understand it anyway. And the state's whole argument back to the defense is that, yeah, grand jury is probable cause. It's never been, and it's not now, without a reasonable doubt. That's what the actual trial is for. And that makes sense to me, because unless they can sit there and say that they have actual proof that a whole different instruction was given to the grand jury, claiming that the grand jury was looking for without a reasonable doubt and not probable cause, then they don't have an argument. But if, like I've mentioned before, if all of the rules that this grand jury was given are incorrect, then that means that every grand jury that has taken place since those rules were put in place would have to be redone. They're not going to do none of that. And I don't see them having a valid argument here. It's probable cause. It has always been probable cause. The trial is what determines if there's reasonable doubt or not, not the grand jury. It just doesn't. And I mean, that's how I've always understood it. That's why this argument that they had on the whole instruction thing, I never took serious. I want to see evidence. I don't care about all of the like technicality fights. I mean, I do when it comes to the way that the justice system is actually working. Okay, things need to be done correctly and just and fair, but you cannot claim they were given the wrong instructions when they're given the exact same instructions that have been given for years. No one ever complained before, and you can't tell me that this is the first time that Ann Taylor or anyone else on her team has had to deal with the grand jury indictment when they're in their case. So unless she has literally argued this for every case that a grand jury has been a part of, she has no argument here. She knows that. Now, we have all been assuming that there's going to be a change of venue eventually, just like we've kind of been told there's going to be a motion of limine put in for all of the IGG stuff, right? But neither one of those things have actually occurred here. Well, Mr. Blue Suit, as he's talking, he mentions the whole change of venue thing, and instantly it just stuck in my head. And so whenever they start talking about the summertime trial and how long it's going to take, and they're going back and forth, it's annoying as hell to me that they're having such a, I guess really a very irrelevant conversation. Okay, because the state is claiming, oh, we need to have it in the summer because all the schools are going to be out and the colleges are going to be out, and so the hotel rooms will be open to accommodate everyone traveling in for the case, whether it be media, family, friends, just people that are coming in because they want to be there. Okay, the parking situation because there's a school nearby, blah 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 blah. Okay, so you're sitting here wasting how many thousands of dollars of taxpayer money having a completely irrelevant argument because you're going to change the venue. So your schools, your parking lots, your hotels, none of that's going to matter. So why are we arguing this? And that goes along with the time frame because they keep saying summer, 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 summer. Okay, but if you go somewhere else where there's not a school nearby and you don't have all those issues, what the hell does it have to be in summer for? It could literally be at any time that you want to if y'all stop playing these little games. Both sides are on my nerves. Okay, you guys know that I'm still not convinced that Bryan's the guy completely. Okay, I'll look at you right now and tell you that. I am not completely convinced at all. I need more proof. 6 grand jury members needed more proof and they weren't given it, and I'm just little old me, so I know I'm definitely not going to get anything I need. But the second he mentioned that, and he let it slip before the argument started because they're not ready to argue change of venue, but it's not going to be an argument because it's literally a discussion that both sides are having together and having no issue. Now, what I don't understand is why Nez Perce or whatever was actually brought up by Bill Thompson, and I've seen a lot of comments questioning that, like, oh, who's over there? Who's over there? You know, because there's so many thoughts about what's happening here. Some of them valid, some of them a little cray cray, but a lot of them are more on the valid side. So I have to question that too, because you're like literally sitting here spitting out a location that you would prefer, and I don't know if you're doing it for real, or if you're being a smartass. Xana. Okay, so I don't understand. I don't know what his real motive was there with like actually naming a place, but it just seemed like a very sarcastic conversation, and a location being spoken was probably a real stupid idea. So I'm gonna actually probably be a little bit upset about it because we already know a couple of things that happened over there, and now you're out here like publicly saying that's where you want it to go. I don't like it. Trial won't put an end to this case. It will go on for another 28 years. What? I mean, I guess if they are really, really, really confident that Bryan is innocent, you would continue to fight for your life. But that's a bold statement. Don't threaten me with a good time. Let's go. And I know there's a lot of people talking about the comment that Logsdon made about how the state just wants to kill a man. And I mean, we all know that Logsdon has a flair for the dramatic, but I mean, is he wrong? They get Bryan, and this is ridiculously horrible case of 4 victims, 4 families, okay? And they bring back the firing squad. He might not be wrong in his sentiment, but he probably still should have kept that part to himself. So then Ann Taylor starts talking about how she doesn't think this is going to be like a 6 to 8 week trial. She's expecting this thing to last 12 to 15 weeks. And this is where I'm like, okay, we are getting some contradictions here, because while she's talking about how they're on the 11th supplemental request for discovery and blah, 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 we also are hearing about all of the plethora of information that they have. But the problem that I'm also having is that these numbers are old, bro. Okay. We've known since like his arrest that they had over 13,000 photos, that they had 51 terabytes of data. That's all old news. It's been over a year. You're sitting here trying to tell me that y'all are still gathering information and putting evidence and stuff together, and those numbers haven't changed. That doesn't make sense. And that's the same thought I had whenever she talks about these like 9,000 tips that they just got. That's another thing. They just on January the 4th, guys, this month of 2024, received over 9,000 tips from the tip line that was created whenever all this happened. Now, honestly, that tip line was useless because they never gave us any real information. They never gave us like an actual description of the person that they were looking for, even though they apparently had that information from Dylan. They never showed us the actual car that they had on any of the video footage. They didn't give us anything. So the tip line was really useless. So they apparently just got this, and that tip line had to be completely shut down and like out of commission before they could get these tips. And now this is apparently over 9,000 tips. None of them are categorized or indexed. This one might be Bryan. This one sounds just like Bryan. This one has nothing to do with Bryan. You know, like there's nothing, there's no organization to any of it. And also when she's talking about the 11th supplemental request for discovery, she's talking about a video, guys. And I am curious as hell because she's talking about it like it's literally like in pieces. And I have like, if you see me looking this way, it's because I took notes on my little sticky note and I'm trying to read it the way that I have it on here. This is what she put. This is basically what she states. There's a video, a really important video. They got it early on, but they only got some of it. That they are waiting for it to be completed because they are still trying to match up video and sound together for the full several days of video. Does that not sound like Linda Lane? Or maybe something similar to Linda Lane that actually shows the King Roadhouse? Because what other video that could be days long would be relevant in something that they're telling us took less than 10 minutes? Okay. Unless there's something that's going to pop up that we are just going to be like so floored and shocked and awed by, I don't know what else it could be. Now, I have issues with Linda Lane because I don't trust the audio. I also don't trust where it came from. I have several videos on Linda Lane, all right? You can't trust anything that was given to people by an anonymous source, that the owners of the property where the security camera was are going back and forth and lying themselves about their responsibilities and what actually happened. We're getting different stories. We're getting told he was paid for it. We're getting told it was stolen. Okay, then we're getting told that Steve had a part of it where he ended up getting it, and he's even admitted in out in the open, very, very publicly, that he has videos of things. Okay, so that's not anything that we don't know about. I just don't believe that the one that's out here is the one that they actually have in evidence. But I've questioned, what about the other cameras? Because I know damn well, and several of you too remember this, that there was a camera, or at least what looked to be a camera, on the building across the street from King Road's like front door. Like, the front door, parking lot, and then there was a camera when all those buildings are blurred out. And I'm telling you, there was a camera there. So if there's going to be anything that's valid, it's going to be there, or it's going to be on the apartment building towards the back if there was one. I don't know, but that stuff right in front of where King Road was is the only stuff that was ever really blurred out. You can still look around and walk around and whatever. At least last time I checked, you could. It's been a minute. I haven't had really a reason to go back and take a look at Google Maps, but it was just those places across the street and the house in front of it that was blurred out, and the house itself. So yeah, I don't know.
But also, like, duh, we also have the PCA telling us that there was a camera 50 feet away from the house that picked up noises at around 4:17 a.m. So that could be the camera as well. But I don't know, because they're saying it's several days worth. I'm just curious as to what the hell it is.
But again, I don't like the fact that we're being told that this thing is in pieces, because that's how she's coming out and claiming it. And this apparently is on the 11th supplemental request for discovery. I guess that kind of explains why they're sealing so many of these documents, honestly. Because if there's detailed information about this video, it's most likely stuff they don't need the public knowing right now. And if my assumptions and a lot of other people's assumptions are correct that there could be a co-defendant in here, and look, people can say whatever they want to, but the simple fact is this. When they're stating these ICR rules, they're stating 1 through 8. They're not stating 1, 3 through 8. And number 2 talks about co-defendants. We've talked about this several times. So until they start notating that rule differently or come out and tell us the truth otherwise about there not being another arrest possible in this or something else going on, I'm just going to keep that door open in my brain. Like it or not, that's what I'm going to do. But this video, it is in pieces. It is several days worth of video, and they are having to match up audio with video. I don't really know what to think. When Anne starts talking about the witnesses in the media, I instantly just knew she had to have been talking about Enon Harsh. Now, I meant to do a video on Enon, but only based on the fact that he was going to be called as a witness. And I think I mentioned it maybe in a video. I know that I've talked about it with other people in the YouTube, world here, but he went on another channel and did an interview and told this person that he was going to be a witness for the defense for the preliminary hearing. But that all of that was it was done and over with because they had the grand jury indictment. And the second that Ann Taylor was like, we have these witnesses that we need, but they've talked to the media too much, so now we shouldn't bring them into the case and we shouldn't talk to them at all. And that's Enon. That's Enon. He was going to be in the preliminaries. And then he's gone around and he's talked to all these YouTube channels, several of them that you guys all know about, maybe a couple of them that you don't. But he's talked too much. But I'm also curious if that also means like the college friends of the victims that were on all these like Datelines and ABCs and all these specials and stuff, right? Because other than Enon, who's not a college person, so he sticks out like a sore thumb whenever he talks in this case, what else could it be but the college friends of the victims or the families of the victims? Because there's no one else talking to media, guys. There's no one from Bryan's family talking to the media. There's no one from Dylan and Bethany's families talking to the media. There's just been the immediate family and some college friends and Enon that have been interviewed in the media. I mean, we've had a sprinkle of people talk about Bryan, a guy that he used to go on runs with. And then we had two other people maybe that came out and talked about Bryan. And then the neighbor, he's not really a witness. And he just was like, yeah, his dad asked me, to be friends with him. And then we had, the friend of the neighbor. But these are like 1 or 2 time interviews that happened over a year ago. They're not staying in the media. So I'm curious if it's not Enon, who else she could be talking about. But if she's so upset about Enon, if that is who she's talking about, makes you kind of wonder what information he has that she's now kind of like butthurt about not being able to put on the stand because he's technically a compromised witness. Curious. How? Oh, how? After all of this time and how confident the state wants us to think that they have all of Bryan's tracks down for that night to prove he was there and prove he's the guy, is there only a draft of the cast available a year later? I don't understand that. And this goes into all of the rest of the problems that we have with the evidence in this case. Apparently, there's still some experts that need to be found. Whenever they are getting information from law enforcement, just like the tip line was completely disorganized information, the photographs are disorganized, the documents are disorganized. You might have a photo, and this is based on what Anne is stating here. You might have photographs, and you might be able to know exactly where the location is and what's in the photograph, but you don't know the officer that took it. You don't know the timestamp of that photograph. All things that have to be there, or they're not admissible in court. And if you don't have all of those little missing data pieces, then you can't use things that are important. And the fact that this is such a high profile case and all eyes are on this case, just like all eyes are on Delphi, and this kind of disorganization is happening, what the shit? But she's claiming that all of this information that they still haven't received, that she knows is out there, that she's waiting on, and that technically she's claiming the state's kind of waiting on too, because she's not technically trying to throw the state completely under the bus. She's saying that, if I only have draft of the cast, then I'm pretty positive that the state only has draft of the cast, because we've asked them specifically for it, and the draft is the only one that we have. So it's safe to assume that's the only one they have. And Thompson better hope that that's the truth. Okay, if he wants to come out of this not looking sleazy, he better hope that he is having the same exact issues with stuff that Anne is. And that is a possibility. That is a huge possibility, because look at how many agencies were in this case. FBI, state police from other states, people in Pennsylvania. We have agencies all over the place. All right. So considering so many hands were in this, it's not surprising stuff is all over the place, but it's been over a year. It has been over a year. This should have been top of the line priority for everyone involved, to get all of this together and get it done, get it sealed up tight so there's no mistakes. But instead, this is just a huge 3-ring circus. Might as well just toss the papers up in the air and just see which one you catch, and that's the one that you present, because that's what this sounds like. It's just a mess. So I don't remember which video it was, but I mentioned this very recently. I'm pretty sure it was in the last week, about Bryan's alibi. If there's a possibility that the one that's so vague about, I was just driving around in the middle of the night with my phone off, was just the one that was published, but if there was something else coming, if there was something else that the court had that was actually detailed. And Ann Taylor talks about this. She talks about this in this session, because apparently there's still things they're working on to get proof and validation of that proves Bryan's alibi. That's how I'm taking what she says here, because it gets brought up and she says, we said we needed more time to get more detailed information, and we're still in that phase. So that means that there's more information coming about Bryan's alibi. That him driving around that night is just what we were told now, because there was a deadline for it. And so Ann Taylor, as she's stated, was pressured into abiding by a deadline that she didn't want to abide by, but she did it anyway, but she did it vaguely. And that they're still working on, to this day, over a year later, getting the proof, I guess. Because remember, the alibi has to be proof. Like, it has to be proven. You have to have people that will attest to it. You have to have some sort of proof that that what you're claiming your alibi is real. Okay. And just like I can't claim that he's the one who did it based off of his cell phone stuff, they can't claim that him driving around in the middle of the night is real because his phone was off. So there has to be something that they are digging up to validate the alibi. So I guess I was sort of right in that there was going to be more coming, that the courts knew that there was something else. It wasn't just as vague as, I was driving around in the middle of the night with my phone off. Good to know. To this day, it seems that Bryan and his team still do not know exactly what and when Bryan became suspect number 1. And she states that she read the PCA over and over again, and she still cannot determine when was the time and the day that Bryan became the one that everyone had their eyes on. And if they don't have that information to this day, that makes no sense to me. Because most of us believe that they didn't have any idea that Bryan was their dude until something happened with the IGG. Okay? Because they saw his car twice. Somebody saw the car in the registrar or whatever, the register thing for WSU. And then 30 minutes later, another officer put eyes on it in the parking lot of Bryan Kohberger's apartment complex. And even though they're not stating there was communication between those two officers, you can pretty much bet that homeboy inside of the building said, hey, bro, are you out there? Can you go check this out? And homeboy went and did it and verified it. That's just not listed, but everyone knows common sense. That's most likely what happened here. Now, that was like on 11/29, if I can remember correctly. He didn't get arrested until a month later. And if his phone was really off, that means that all the cell phone stuff that they got didn't have anything to do with Bryan. Nothing about Bryan would have showed up on that, right? So, considering the fact they gave us the wrong information for the car that Bryan actually has, his own lawyer doesn't even know when her client was pointed at for the first time. That's a problem. That's a big problem. She says the more work she does trying to figure out exactly how the state chose Bryan, the less she has figured out. The more work she does, the less answers that she has. Girl, yeah, us too. Us too. I think that's it. I'll go back in and listen to the one that I uploaded and see if I missed anything, but I'm pretty sure that's it. If you guys didn't hear me mention something that you guys caught, please leave it in the comments and, we'll discuss it at some point. But I think that's it. But again, I felt like a lot of these arguments were sort of pointless. I already had no confidence whatsoever in the whole jury instruction problems that they were claiming to have, and I've made my reasons for that fairly clear several times. And on top of that, their whole change of venue situation, they need to stop arguing about how long the case is going to take and just work on the damn thing. Like they really spend a lot of time arguing about things that are pointless, because if you're going to change the venue, then you freaking out about your school zones and your parking in your hotels is pointless. The whole thing is just, it's just pointless. It was a lot of waste. Like, I don't really feel like anything. I mean, we got some information. I'm super intrigued about this video that Ann Taylor's talking about. All right. And I don't understand how there's only a draft of the cast information whenever we're supposed to believe they've got Bryan dead to rights. Okay. That doesn't work for me either. But it was also really interesting to find out that there's more information coming about Bryan's alibi, or at least it's going to be presented to the court. But yeah, I just don't. Felt like it was kind of wasteful. I mean, I'm glad we got some new information. I mean, cool, we have more stuff to talk about, all right? But this didn't get the families any closer to like closure, or us any closer to figuring out what's actually going on here, or Bryan any closer for, if he is innocent, to get out. I mean, can you imagine if Bryan actually did not do this? Okay, I want y'all to actually like sit back and think about it. If Bryan didn't do this, he is willing to sit in jail for like additional time just so that he doesn't actually end up on death row. I mean, I know that, guilty people can fight like this too, but you also can't just assume that that's the reason that he just wants attention, because he doesn't really seem to be wanting attention. He really doesn't. I mean, he didn't want cameras around. He didn't want all this crazy stuff. He doesn't seem to be wanting any of this circus. And his family doesn't really want any of it either, it seems. Like, no one that's immediate family of his is talking. And it could be because he's asking them not to. Like, I don't want any attention on this. I just want to do whatever I got to do. I mean, we really don't know. We really just don't know. But I know all the families really wanted was a trial date set. The Goncalveses posted that on their Facebook page. All that they really wanted out of what happened on Friday was a trial date. And instead, they get both sides agreeing that they want to just drag this out longer and longer. Whatever, all that is more taxpayer dollars. That's all it is. To me, it's unnecessary. They need to get it over with. But then again, I don't want anything missed, because this is also a man's life. Logsdon had that part right. He just didn't really need to say it the way that he did. So I get it, and I see both sides. I just know the families don't want to keep dealing with this. They want the truth out there, because until trial, they don't know the truth either. Until trial, they don't know the facts and the truths about what happened to their children. They only know the bits and pieces that we do. I mean, yeah, somebody might have slipped them a little bit of information, but by now we all know it. They're still clueless to the actual truth. And speaking of information from family, I'm very aware of the interview that the Goncalveses did with Good Morning America, where there was some interesting information that came out about Kaylee. Okay. I'm going to react to that because it has definitely given me a different perspective. It's given me a very different perspective. And we're going to talk about that later. But that is it for now, you guys. Again, if I missed anything, please leave it in the comments.
Actually, guys, I did. I did actually forget something, and I'm so glad that I caught it. I literally pressed the download button, and then it hit me, and so I stopped it, and it only had downloaded like 5%. Okay, anyways, what I forgot to mention is that Ann Taylor stated something pretty interesting about learning Bryan's story, and that as his defense lawyer, she was required, and she used the word required, meaning she has to, by law, required, to do 3 generations worth of history on both sides of his family. So okay, and then dad, grandpa, great grandpa? Yeah. And then mom, grandma, great grandma. And that's required of them. So that's interesting because we have all of this stuff going on with genealogy and then wanting to keep everything super quiet and there being a huge fight about the IGG. And lo and behold, the defense team literally has to do a genealogy tree on their client, like as a requirement. Now, I don't know if this is like an Idaho thing or if this is an American Bar Association thing, because she mentioned their rules a few times. And we found out there's like 400 potential witnesses that their people have only talked to like 10% of those, and then there's like 100 other people that they have to talk to that are like family members. Like it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So I found that interesting because this requirement is linked to like one of the biggest arguments in this whole case, and it's in its own way. I can't believe I almost forgot to put that in here, you guys.
If you like the way that I present this information, please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. See y'all.